Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Munib Hamid and these are the headlines. The United States has reported a new daily record of over 67,500 COVID-19 cases as the toll nears 3.5 million and the death count exceeds 137,000. In Brazil, more than 1,200 people have died and almost 40,000 tested positive in the last 24 hours. The country's death toll has crossed 75,000 with nearly 2 million cases. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 40 people lost their lives overnight, raising the total to 5,426 with nearly 258,000 cases. Globally, the virus has killed more than 583,000 people while infecting 13.5 million. Turkey says 7 of its security personnel have been killed after their reconnaissance plane crashed in a mountain in eastern Van province. Talking to media, Interior Minister Suleiman said 2 pilots and 5 technical personnel were among those killed in the crash. Tunisia's Prime Minister Elias Fakhfeh has resigned after less than 5 months in office over a dispute with his political party and Nahda. A government statement said Fakhfeh presented his resignation to President Kais Saied. The President must now choose a new candidate for Prime Minister as failure to build another coalition can trigger an election. Con artists have hacked into the Twitter accounts of a number of technology moguls, politicians and major companies in an apparent Bitcoin scam. The hackers posted bogus tweets from Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Mike Bloomberg, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates and Elon Musk. Meanwhile, Twitter has temporarily suspended verified accounts functionality, saying it's looking into the matter. China has become the first economy to rebound from the economic fallout of COVID-19, avoiding a technical recession. The country's National Bureau of Statistics says GDP grew more than 3% in the second quarter, defying forecasts. We'll be right back with the details. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. We start from the United States, which has reported a new daily record of over 67,500 COVID-19 cases as the toll nears 3.5 million and the death count exceeds 137,000. In Brazil, more than 1,200 people have died and almost 40,000 tested positive in the last 24 hours. The country's death toll has crossed 75,000 with nearly 2 million cases. Globally, the virus has killed more than 583,000 people while infecting 13.5 million. This report has more.
The coronavirus pandemic is soaring to alarming new highs, with record cases being reported from various countries every day. Brazil's President Jair Bolsonaro continues to hype hydroxychloroquine as a COVID-19 treatment against the World Health Organization and other independent researchers. In the US, Florida state's hospitals have been overwhelmed as the number of COVID-19 patients keeps booming. Governor Ron DeSantis said he is sending 1,000 medical workers to Miami-Dade County to battle the rising cases.
The capacity in terms of beds, as I mentioned, is strong. It really is the personnel that is going to be the key. So I mentioned some of the people that we're deploying to Miami-Dade. We're going to be deploying over 1,000 people throughout the state very soon. We have the capacity to potentially up that to 3,000.
Spain's island of Majorca has banned popular party streets in Magaluf and Palma amidst fears of a second wave. Belgium has postponed further easing of rules on social gatherings after an uptick in the number of infections. Over in Australia, state of Victoria has reported 317 new cases, a record for the country since the epidemic began. Meanwhile, South Africa's cases have crossed 300,000, the most in Africa and amongst the top 10 in the world. While in Kenya, COVID-19 has killed 4 health workers and infected 450.
Health workers handling patients with confirmed or suspected coronavirus disease face an increased risk of exposure to the virus. Some healthcare workers have indeed become infected with the coronavirus in the course of their duties. The ease of transmission of the virus makes this possible.
In Asia, Tokyo's Governor Yuriko Koike says daily cases in the capital are likely to top 280, the highest since the start of the outbreak. South Korea's new infections have bounced back to surpass 60 again as imported cases continue to rise. Meanwhile, Bangladesh has arrested a hospital owner accused of faking thousands of coronavirus test results.
While in Pakistan, the number of new COVID-19 cases has been declining for the past 2 weeks. The Ministry of Health says 40 people have died, while just over 2,000 tested positive for the virus in the last 24 hours. The country's death toll has risen to 5,426, with nearly 258,000 infected so far. The ministry said there are over 73,000 active cases in the country, among which 1,942 are critically ill. It said nearly 179,000 people have recovered so far. The southern province of Sindh is the worst hit, with nearly 109,000 infections, while Punjab has reported over 88,000 cases. Now, the European Parliament has said it's concerned over India's Citizenship Amendments Bill. President of the European Council, Charles, expressed this concern at the 15th EU-India Summit in Brussels. Addressing a press conference alongside European Commission Ursula von der Leyen, Michel said that they had raised the matter of India's citizenship bill earlier as well. He said the EU wanted to play a stronger role in changing the balance of power in Asia. The President of European Council said that the Indian Supreme Court is reviewing the decision. So the EU expects a balanced verdict. In December, violent protests swept across India against Narendra Modi's citizenship law. Critics claim the law threatens India's status as a secular democracy. The NATO has called for the Afghan Taliban to join a humanitarian ceasefire amid the increased levels of violence at present. In a statement by the bloc's political decision-making body, the military alliance called for an Afghan-owned and Afghan-led peace process. It said it was the only way to deliver sustainable peace to the Afghan people and ensure Afghanistan's long-term security and stability. The bloc called on all sides to rapidly resolve the remaining issues, still precluding the start of the inclusive intra-Afghan negotiations. Moving on, Tunisian Prime Minister Elias Fakhfek has resigned from his post after a dispute with his political party, Ennahda. A government statement said the Prime Minister handed in his resignation to President Kais Saied. The move comes after the Ennahda party withdrew its support from the government coalition, ending majority support to Fakhfek. President Saied must now choose a new candidate for Prime Minister, as failure to build another coalition can trigger an election. Moving on, China has summoned the U.S. ambassador to protest at the Hong Kong Autonomy Act passed by the Congress and signed by President Trump. Vice Foreign Minister Zhang Zhiguang met U.S. envoy Terry Branstad and said Beijing will impose retaliatory sanctions against Washington. Earlier in a statement, the Foreign Ministry said the semi-autonomous territory is China's internal affair and no foreign country has the right to interfere. On Tuesday, Trump signed Hong Kong Autonomy Act that revokes license exceptions for inland exports and special treatment for the territory's passport holders, while the executive order sanctions individuals responsible for undermining Hong Kong democratic processes. Trump said the territory will now be treated the same as mainland China without any special privileges. Now, con artists have hacked into the Twitter accounts of a number of technology moguls, politicians and major companies in an apparent Bitcoin scam. The hackers posted bogus tweets from Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Mike Bloomberg, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates and Elon Musk. The fake tweets offered $2,000 for every 1,000 sent to a Bitcoin address. The cause of the breach was not immediately clear. Twitter has temporarily suspended verified accounts functionality, saying it's looking into the matter. It told users to reset their passwords until the system loophole that allowed mass hacking is fixed. Turkey says 7 of its security personnel have been killed after their reconnaissance plane crashed in a mountain in the eastern Van province. Talking to media, Interior Minister Suleiman said 2 pilots and 5 technical personnel were among those killed in the crash. Soylu said the plane crashed at an altitude of 2,200 meters on Mount Athos. He said the 2015 model plane was a mission for surveillance in Van and Hakkari provinces. Soylu said the pilots contacted the tower for the last time when they were around Baskale district. Moving on, Iraq says it has killed 6 ISIS militants in Kirkuk province and arrested 4 others near the capital, Baghdad. In a statement, the Counter-Terrorism Service said the troops backed by the International Coalition aircraft conducted an operation in the region. It said the CTS forces arrested 3 ISIS militants in Al-Taji area and another militant in Abu Ghraib area. The operations came as militants have intensified their attacks on the security forces, including Hasht Shabi forces. ISIS gained full control in Mosul, Salatin and Anbar provinces and seized territories in Diyala and Kirkuk provinces in 2014. But Iraqi security forces managed to regain control in subsequent years. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that sanctions against Iran have no chance of succeeding. In a phone conversation with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, Putin urged preservation of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. The Kremlin statement said the Russian president stressed the hopelessness of the sanctions and pressure on Tehran in this regard. On June 30th, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo urged the UN Security Council to extend an arms embargo against Iran. Discussing Libya, the 2 leaders expressed agreement over the need to overcome the crisis exclusively by political and diplomatic methods. They called for establishment of an inter-Libyan dialogue as prescribed by the decisions of January's Berlin conference. Libya has been torn by civil war since the ouster of late ruler Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. Moving on, the United Nations has expressed fears of a catastrophe if an oil tanker abandoned off Yemen's coast with 1.1 million barrels of crude ruptures into the Red Sea. In a briefing to the UN Security Council Environment Chief, Aigner Anderson said the possible oil spill will devastate marine life and tens of thousands of people who depend on fishing for their livelihood. She said time is running out to act in a coordinated manner to prevent a looming catastrophe. Anderson said the tanker's conditions is deteriorating daily, increasing the potential for an oil spill. The Security Council issued a communique expressing its deep alarm at the growing risk. It called on the Houthi rebels to move ahead with the granting access to the tanker as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Ethiopia has started filling the Grand Renaissance Dam on the Blue Nile after talks with Sudan and Egypt deadlocked. In an interview, Water Minister Seleshi Bekele said construction and filling of the dam go hand in hand. Ethiopian government says the dam offers a critical opportunity to pull millions of its citizens out of poverty. The project is the centerpiece of Ethiopia's bid to become Africa's biggest electricity exporter. But the move is likely to prompt fierce protests from Egypt and Sudan, which also depend on the Nile's waters. Rejecting Ethiopia's action, Sudan's government said water levels on the Blue Nile had dropped by 90 million cubic meters per day. More news coming up after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, Germany's State Minister for Europe, Michael Roth, says he is optimistic that agreements on a recovery fund will be made at an EU summit. Speaking after a meeting, Roth said a deal was crucial for the European Union's credibility. He said it was no longer a question of national interests, but strengthening of the bloc as a whole. The minister said Britain has shown insufficient realism regarding the issue. Roth said EU's relations with the UK will be a major topic in their meetings from September onwards. Britain continues to participate in many EU structures until the transition period ends on December 31st. Now, the UN has urged Venezuela to dismantle some gold, diamond and bauxite mines in the Venezuelan Amazon. A UN investigation has found that these mines are largely controlled by criminal gangs who exploit, beat and even kill workers. The UN report said that 149 people were reported to have died in or around the mines from March 2016 to 2020. The UN official, Nada al-Nashif, presented the findings on the area known as the Orinoco Mining Arc to the Human Rights Council. She said that the report highlights a pattern of labor exploitation, including child labor.
According to first-hand accounts received by the office, a large portion of mining activities remain under the control of organized crime or armed elements that impose their own rules through violence and extortion.
Well, Venezuela's ambassador, George Valero, rejected the report in a speech that did not specifically mention mining. Now, moving on, the European Court of Human Rights has filed a lawsuit by the Netherlands against Russia over the MH17 plane crash. In a statement, the court noted the Malaysian Airlines Boeing crashed over eastern Ukraine on July 17, 2014. It said Holland claims the plane was hit by a missile launched from a Buk air defense system that allegedly belonged to Russia. Earlier, Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson said Netherlands' decision to turn to the EU court was another blow to bilateral relations. Maria Zakharova said this step will lead only to further politicization and obstruct the search for truth. In southern Italy, 2 people have died after parts of the Sicilian city of Palermo were flooded. This country has been battered by thunderstorms and torrential rain. Authorities said the 2 died in a car that was engulfed in floodwater. Mayor Leorca Orlando said the city received its highest amount of rain in history in just 2 hours. Orlando said the amount of rainfall was equivalent to 1 year's worth of rainfall. China has become the first economy to rebound from the economic fallout of COVID-19, avoiding a technical recession. The country's National Bureau of Statistics says GDP grew more than 3% in the second quarter, defying forecasts. Beijing's economic expansion was still the weakest on record, which followed a historic 6.8% slump in the first quarter. This comes as major economies, including the US and the EU, as well as Japan, are still struggling to reopen. Asian stock markets have retreated as investor sentiments were weighed down by US-China tensions. They were also dampened over the cost of resurgence of COVID-19, which may hamper the revival of economic activity. Shanghai Composite is trading nearly 2.5% lower. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index has lost 1%. Seoul's Kospi is trading nearly 1% lower. Nikkei 225 has lost 0.75%. Meanwhile, international benchmark Brent crude oil lost over 0.5%. This comes as OPEC and its allies agree to ease record oil supply curbs from August. The globe. With the weather update, we come to the end of this bulletin. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news. Take care.